The morning air in Atlanta was heavy with sorrow. Black cars lined the street outside Carter Memorial Baptist Church. Men in dark suits shook hands stiffly, women in black hats dabbed their eyes with handkerchiefs, and the choir rehearsed quietly inside. My father, Richard Coleman, lay in a polished mahogany casket at the front of the church. White roses rested on top, their fragrance cutting through the thick scent of incense. He had been a strong man, respected in the community, a businessman, a deacon, a man people said had done well for himself. But that morning, as I sat with my brothers and sisters in the front pew, I noticed Mama. She was restless. Her hands twisted her black scarf, her lips moved in silent words. Something about her face didn't look like grief, it looked like determination. The pastor began the funeral. Hymns filled the church. Friends and family gave tributes. My father's best friend, Mr. Johnson, said, Richard was a man of vision, a man who built not just wealth, but character. Applause echoed through the crowd. Then it was Mama's turn to speak. She walked slowly to the pulpit, her black gown sweeping the floor. Everyone expected her to cry and thank people for coming. Instead, she stood before the microphone, her eyes burning with fire. This man, she began, her voice trembling, cannot be buried today. The entire church went silent. People thought she had misspoken. But Mama gripped the pulpit tighter and repeated louder, My husband cannot go into the ground yet. Not today. Not until the truth is told. Gasps erupted. Ushers froze. My siblings and I looked at each other, horrified. The pastor rushed forward to whisper, Sister Coleman, please, calm down. This is a house of God. But Mama shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. No. You don't understand. If you bury this man today, you bury lies with him. The choir stood in shock. Some mourners covered their mouths, whispering, What is she saying? Others fanned themselves as though the air had grown hotter. And in that moment, the funeral turned from a farewell into the beginning of a storm that would tear our family apart. Loretta, please. Pastor Green's voice was gentle but firm, palm hovering near Mama's elbow like he might guide her back to her seat. We will honor the truth in due time. Let us finish the service. Mama pulled her elbow free. No, Pastor. Today is the day. If you lay Richard down without what he confessed, the ground will spit him back up. I won't have his spirit restless, and I won't have our children living in a lie. Murmurs rolled through the pews like a low thunder. Auntie Val put a hand to her chest. Lord have mercy. I stood, feeling my heart pound. Mama, please, I whispered, moving toward the aisle. My brothers, Darius and Caleb, stared at the floor. My younger sister, Naomi, kept wiping her eyes though she wasn't exactly crying. It was more like she was washing away the heat of embarrassment. Mama turned to face the congregation, her hands shaking but her voice steady now. I will not bury a confession. I will not bury an instruction. Richard wrote a letter 3 nights before he died. He said, Loretta, don't let them put me under until you open this and do what is right. Mr. Johnson stood, as if to defend his friend's image. Sister Coleman, with respect, Richard was a pillar. If there was a letter, we can read it after the service. Let the man rest with dignity. Dignity! Mama laughed, a single hard sound. Dignity ain't the same as silence. People shifted, doors creaked, and the funeral directors exchanged looks. The choir members, still in their black robes, looked like carved shadows under the lights. Pastor Green pressed his lips together. If there is an instruction from Brother Richard, we will hear it. But please, this is God's house. We will do it decently and in order. Mama nodded once. Then let us do it decently and in order. Not the burial. The truth. He hesitated, then said, 5 minutes. In my office. Family only. Mama stepped down from the pulpit and glanced back at the casket. For a moment I thought she might touch it, but she only folded her hands like someone bracing against wind. We followed the pastor past the choir loft and down the hall, where a framed photo of the church founders watched us with cold, still eyes. Inside the office, the smell of lemon cleaner and old paper mingled with the perfume of grief. The pastor closed the door, and the sound of the church outside dimmed to a muffled hush. "Speak," he said softly. Mama took a breath. "There's a will y'all don't know. And there's a confession. Richard told me he did things," her mouth trembled, "things that must be corrected before he can rest. He said he had another child. He said he took money from a business that wasn't his alone. He said, 'Make it right, Loretta.'" Darius's head snapped up. "Another child?" His voice came out like a scrape. Caleb cursed under his breath and then apologized to the pastor. Naomi whispered, "Daddy wouldn't." Mama cut in, voice breaking. "He would. And he did. And he wrote it down." "Where is it?" I asked. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a thick envelope, brown and heavy. My father's tidy handwriting flowed across the front, "To be opened if I pass, by Loretta, in the presence of our children and the pastor." The pastor took the envelope, weighing it in his hands like a small, quiet stone. "If this is real, we must honor it." "It is real," Mama said. "I wish it wasn't." He slid his finger under the seal. The paper tore with a soft rip that sounded, in that small office, like a door unlocking. The pastor unfolded the papers slowly. His eyes moved left to right. His brow sank. He cleared his throat and began to read. "To my wife, Loretta, and to my children, Darius, Caleb, Naomi, and our eldest, Ava." He paused only a fraction before reading on. "By the time you hear this, if you do, it means I didn't make it to say it out loud. I have a daughter named Alana from long before Loretta and I were ever married. I supported Alana in secret, ashamed and afraid, and I failed to bring her into the light of family." The air thinned. A ringing grew in my ears. "There is also money," the pastor read, "tied up in the Southside auto lot. I took a portion that belonged to my cousin Terence when we dissolved our handshake agreement. I told myself I'd repay it, but never did. The deed under my name includes land that should have been shared. I ask that you find Terence, settle the amount with interest. I ask that you find Alana. I ask that you do not bury me until an attempt at repair is made, documented, intentional, and witnessed. If you bury me without this, I fear my name will sit heavy on your shoulders." Mama closed her eyes. "He told me that part, too. All of it." The pastor scanned the remaining pages. "He lists amounts, names, addresses. He left us a map of his wrongs and how to straighten them." Darius paced, jaw tight. "So we're supposed to stop the burial? For how long?" "Folks are out there right now, Pastor. The choir's humming. The funeral home is on the clock." Caleb rubbed his face and shook his head. "Another daughter," he muttered. "We're grown and he kept that from us." Naomi whispered, "What if she's kind? What if she's alone?" Then she looked at Mama. Fear and hope swirled together. "What if she's like us?" I felt something inside me shift, the floor of what I believed about our father slanting underfoot. "We can't pretend we don't know," I said softly. "Pretending moves the pain to later." Pastor Green laid the letter on his desk. "God is not the author of confusion, but he does call for repentance. The man made a confession and asked for action. This is not about spectacle. It's about obedience to a final request." He looked at Mama. "What do you need, Loretta?" "I need them to know I didn't start this fire," Mama said. "I'm carrying his last message. We must call Alana. We must call Terence." "Now?" Darius asked. "Now," Mama said. or we send him to the grave with unfinished business. The pastor nodded. I'll speak to the congregation and ask for patience. We can recess, invite them to the fellowship hall for refreshments while the family addresses urgent matters. We will not rush the grave. Darius exhaled like a tire losing air. This will be the talk of Atlanta. Let them talk, Mama said. I want the truth to talk louder. The pastor opened the door. The hallway noise swelled. 5 minutes, he told us. Then we meet here again, with phone calls made, if possible. As he left to calm the church, Mama gripped my hand. Ava, you always had the steady voice. Call the number on the letter for Alana. I'll call Terrence. My mouth was dry. What do I even say? Say what's true, Mama replied. Say your father loved poorly but loved still. Say he is asking us to do right. We huddled around the pastor's office phone because it was loud enough for all to hear. I dialed the number my father had written next to the name Alana Brooks. Each ring stretched time thin. On the third, a sleepy voice answered. Hello. I swallowed. Hi, is this Alana? Yes. Who's calling? My name is Ava Coleman. The word snagged. I'm Richard Coleman's daughter. Silence. Then a soft breath. My father. I glanced at Mama. She nodded, urging me forward. My father. I steadied my voice. He passed last week. We're at his funeral right now. Please, I know this is sudden, but he left us a letter asking that we call you before he's buried. He wanted you to be named, to be included, to be known. On the other end, a muffled sound, like someone covering the phone as they gathered themselves. Then Alana spoke, voice barely above a whisper. I always thought I'd get that call while he was still breathing. I'm sorry, I said. How old are you? She asked. 32. I'm 34, she said. He sent cards when I was little. Stopped around middle school. Came once when I was 6. Stood across the street. My mama told me years later. A short, breathy laugh. I learned to stop counting. My chest ached. He wrote that he failed you. He asked us not to bury him until we tried to make things right. I don't know what right looks like today, but I can offer you the truth and a chair in the front row. Another silence, this one softer. Where are you? Carter Memorial Baptist on Auburn Avenue. I'll come, Alana said. I don't know if I can walk in, but I'll come. Thank you, I said. I'll meet you out front. We ended the call, and before relief could land, Mama was dialing the second number. When a gravelly voice answered, her tone sharpened with old familiarity. Terrence. It's Loretta. A pause, then a careful, Loretta. I heard about Richard. I was sorry. He left a letter, Mama said. He named you. The South Side Auto Lot. The money. Terrence exhaled hard. He named it. He did, Mama said. He asked us to settle with you before we bury him. Well, I'll be, Terrence murmured. That man and I been dancing around that debt 20 years. We have the figures he wrote. We can pay at least a portion today, witnessed by the pastor. The rest within 30 days, with proper paperwork. Darius frowned. Today. Mama met his gaze. Some part of it. Something that says we chose truth. Terrence's voice returned. Bring me the paper. I can be at the church in 30 minutes. I'm 5 blocks over, picking up rotors. Come. She hung up, then looked at us, shoulders squared. We're not running. We're standing. The pastor re-entered, the roar of the sanctuary dim on his heels. I told them we need an interlude for a family matter. Folks are murmuring, but I put deaconesses at the doors and asked the ushers to prepare coffee and tea. He looked between us. Any luck? I nodded. Alana is coming. Mama nodded. Terence too, to settle the beginning of the debt. The pastor pressed his hands together with a small nod. Then we will let the day be what it demands. He glanced at me. Ava, will you meet Alana? People will stare less if you are by her side. I'll go, I said. As I stepped toward the hall, Naomi caught my arm. Can I come? I studied her face, the girl who still called our father Daddy like she was 8. Yes, you should. The Georgia sun flashed hard white off chrome bumpers outside. People clustered on the steps, whispering low. Naomi and I stood by the iron railing when a small silver sedan pulled to the curb. A woman stepped out, brown skin like ours, hair in a neat twist out, a simple black dress that fell below her knees. She clutched her purse strap like it was the only honest thing in reach. She saw me. I lifted my hand halfway and said, Alana? She nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears. Naomi took a small step forward, then hung back, remembering all at once that she was meeting a sister. We were all trying to remember our roles in this new play. I'm Ava, I said. This is Naomi. Alana's gaze flicked over our faces, searching and measuring. He had your eyes, she said to me. Then to Naomi, softer, and your mouth. Naomi swallowed. You look like him too, she whispered, and then surprised us all by stepping in to hug Alana. It was quick, unsure, but something in it was a bridge. Alana wiped her cheek. Is Mama here? Your mother. She's inside, I said. She asked us to call you. She insisted. Alana looked toward the doors, fear pulling her posture tight. Is she angry? She's hurting, I said. But she's brave enough to hold the door open. We guided her in. The sanctuary hushed as we entered, the kind of silence that tilts heads and widens eyes. I felt 100 questions land on our backs and kept walking. We led Alana to the front pew, next to Mama. For a breath, time slowed. Our mother stared up into Alana's face the way one looks at a portrait and recognizes blood. Alana, Mama said, standing. I'm Loretta. Thank you for coming. Alana's voice shook. I never wanted to be a secret. I never wanted to be a wound. You are not a wound, Mama said. My husband's choices cut us all, but you are not the knife. A small sound slipped from Alana's throat. Mama reached out, hesitant, then gathered her in. The embrace was awkward and holy, and full of sharp edges softened by human warmth. I heard someone behind us sniffle. Footsteps approached. A man in a blue work shirt entered the aisle, cap in hand. Terence. He looked older than Daddy, with sorrow living behind his eyes like a tenant that wouldn't move out. Loretta, he said, nodding. Kids. His gaze flicked toward the casket. Rich. Mama gestured toward the pastor's office. We'll sign in there. Pastor Green moved quickly, sensing that the congregation needed a shepherd. Members and guests, he announced, microphone in hand. The family is addressing matters Brother Richard placed in writing before his passing. We ask your patience, your prayers, and your peace. There will be light refreshments in the fellowship hall. We will resume the service shortly. The murmur rose and fell like surf. Some looked irritated, others looked relieved to be part of something true. In the office, Terence studied the papers. These numbers are fair, he said, tapping the page. He owed me $25,000 back then. He added interest. Loretta, that's honest math. Mama slid a cashier's check across the desk. $10,000 today. The remainder in 30 days, with notarized agreement. He blinked. Today. Today, Mama replied. So no one says we only talked. He cleared his throat, rough with feeling. I never wanted to bury Rich angry. I just wanted him to say it plain. Looks like he found his words when he ran out of time. He took the check gently, like it might break. I accept. The pastor drafted a simple agreement, and we all signed. The room quiet except for the scratch of pens and the click of the notary stamp the church secretary fetched from a locked drawer. Terence slipped the agreement into his pocket. He lingered by the door, eyes shining. I'll sit in back, he said. I want to hear the send-off right. Back in the sanctuary, the air felt different, thinner, cleaner, like a window had been opened. Alana sat beside Mama. Darius and Caleb took seats on the other side, shoulders rigid, eyes forward. They hadn't said much, but they showed up. That counts for something when the ground shifts. The pastor returned to the pulpit. We will now continue with the service, but not as if nothing happened. We will continue as people who chose light over shadow. Before the eulogy, Sister Loretta has asked to read a portion of Brother Richard's letter so that no rumor outshouts the truth. Mama stepped up again, slower this time. She read, not every sordid detail, but enough. The words about Alana, the debt to Terence, the request to begin repairs before burial. Gasps and sighs braided together in the pews. Then something unexpected happened. The choir hummed, unprompted, the old hymn I Surrender All. It started with one alto, then the tenors, then the whole chorus, soft as a prayer breathed into a wounded room. We decided, no, we knew, we could finish the service. The casket would not go into the ground that afternoon. The burial would be tomorrow, after more calls were made, after Alana decided if she wanted to speak at the graveside, after the agreement with Terence was filed with our lawyer. But we would still tell the story of my father's life in this church today, with Truth sitting in the front row, hands folded, eyes open. The eulogy was different than planned. The pastor spoke of a complicated man, generous to many, stubborn with himself, faithful in service, failing in secrecy, a father who taught us to change a tire in the rain and taught us, by his confession, to own what we break. The words didn't excuse, they humanized. And somehow that made the grief more honest. When the last hymn ended, we stood in a receiving line by the aisle. People came with condolences, and with eyes trying not to stare at Alana. Some hugged her. One older woman slipped a tissue into her hand and said, "Baby, you belong here today." Alana's chin trembled. She nodded. Near the end, Mr. Johnson approached, his face drawn. "Loretta," he said, "I didn't know." "I believe you," Mama replied. "Thank you for the kindness you did know how to give." He looked at the casket, then at us. "Your father built more than money," he said. "He built children who told the truth when it hurt. That counts too. We didn't bury Daddy that day. We made the next day the burial, a graveside service under the oaks at Southview. The funeral home agreed to hold the body overnight. They had seen stranger delays, the director said with a professional shrug that still felt like mercy. At home, the house filled with cousins and pots of food that tasted like memory. Mac and cheese with a crisp top, green beans cooked with a whisper of smoked turkey, peach cobbler sweating syrup under its crust. People ate more than they were hungry for. That's what we do when grief is too big to swallow. Alana came too. She sat on the edge of our couch like she might be asked to leave at any second. Mama made a plate and set it before her like a welcome mat. "Eat," she said. "Then tell me about your mother." Alana picked up a fork, hand trembling. "Mama's name is Denise," she said. "They were together before you." She said it was brief. She met him again once, later, when she brought me downtown to see the Christmas lights. He hesitated, then kept walking. That's when she knew how it would be. She pushed a bean around her plate. She didn't badmouth him. She just told me to make sure I didn't go looking for love in people's blind spots. Naomi sat cross-legged on the rug. "Do you have kids?" "One," Alana said, a small smile edging past the sadness. "Khalil, 10 years old. Smart mouth. Soft heart. Bring him tomorrow," Mama said, as if inviting kin she'd known for years. If you want. Alana's eyes glistened. I want. Darius and Caleb hovered in the doorway. They had that look men get when the tools they were handed no longer fit the job. Finally, Darius came forward, clearing his throat. I'm Darius, he said, like Alana didn't already know. I fix air conditioners mostly. I like to know where the leaks are. He laughed once at himself. I'm glad you came. Alana nodded. Me too. Caleb stepped up, hands in pockets. I'm Caleb. I don't have a speech. I'm sorry for the years you were alone. Thank you, she said. Later, after the house quieted, I found Mama in the kitchen writing numbers in a notebook. Costs, deadlines, names to call. You don't have to carry all this tonight, I said. I'm not, she replied, tapping the page. I'm laying some of it down where I can see it. Tomorrow we bury a man and keep a promise. I leaned against the counter. You could have kept the letter to yourself, I said. You could have buried him without the storm. She looked up at me, eyes tired but clear. I tried to for an hour. Your father told the truth to me, and then I tested whether I could carry it alone. It burned. So I put it down in the light. She closed the notebook. Your daddy loved me the best way he knew, until he loved me better by telling the truth. I'll honor the second love more than the first. We stood there a while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the low TV in the living room where cousins were falling asleep in borrowed blankets. The night between death and burial is a long, strange road. But we were walking it together. Before bed, I stepped onto the porch. The air was thick with summer. Stars pressed like thumbprints into the sky. I thought of Daddy teaching me to check the oil in the car in this very driveway, his hands steady, his voice patient. I thought of the letter, his last act of courage. I thought of Alana, of Terrence, of debts counted and paid and still due in other currencies. Behind me, the door creaked. Naomi slipped out, wrapped in a cardigan. You okay? She asked. No, I said. And yes. She nodded. Same. We sat on the steps, shoulders touching, not saying much. Somewhere down the block, someone laughed. Somewhere else, a siren wound its way through the city. Life kept going. Tomorrow we would lower a casket. Tonight we kept watch over a new kind of family. Do you think he can hear us? Naomi asked. I hope what he hears is that we listened, I said. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Then maybe he's sleeping better than we are. We watched the sky until our eyes blurred. Then we went inside, closed the door on the warm night, and tried to rest. The next day, the sky over Southview Cemetery was pale and cloudless. Heat pressed down heavy, making the oaks look weary. Folding chairs circled the gravesite, the casket poised above the earth, ropes taut like held breaths. Unlike the day before, the crowd was smaller. Some had stayed away, too unsettled by yesterday's revelations. Others came because they wanted to see how the story ended. Alana arrived in her black dress again, this time holding the hand of a boy with wide eyes and braided hair, her son, Khalil. He looked around nervously until Naomi crouched down and whispered something that made him laugh. The sound felt like cool water in the heat. Mama stood tall, her veil lifted back, her face calm. Darius and Caleb were stiff beside her. I stood with Naomi, and Alana joined us, folding herself into our line without hesitation. It looked strange but right. Pastor Green cleared his throat. We are gathered to complete what we began yesterday. Brother Richard confessed what he needed to confess. His family responded with courage. Today we place him in the ground, not with secrets, but with light. The choir sang softly, just a handful of voices this time. When they finished, Pastor Green asked, Does anyone here wish to speak before we commit the body? Mama stepped forward first. Richard Coleman was my husband for 36 years. He made me laugh, he made me cry, he made me strong. Yesterday, I refused to bury him because I knew he wanted his wrongs named. Today, I bury him because we named them. I forgive him, and I release him. She laid a single red rose on the casket and stepped back. For a moment, silence hung over the gathering. Then Alana squeezed her son's hand and walked to the casket. Her steps were slow but steady, her chin lifted even as her eyes shimmered. I wasn't sure if I should speak, she began, her voice trembling. But yesterday you called me, and today I am here. She glanced at Mama, then at us. For years, I wondered if I was invisible. My mama told me not to hate him, but I did sometimes. I hated the birthdays without a card, the recitals without a face in the crowd. I hated watching other girls run into their father's arms while mine crossed the street. Her voice cracked. She touched the casket gently. But I loved him too. I loved the man I saw from afar. I loved the sound of his laugh the one time he bent down to tie my shoe. I loved the idea that maybe one day he'd knock on my door. Yesterday, he knocked in a different way. And today, I stand here not as a secret, but as a daughter. She took a breath. I forgive him. For me, for my son. And I thank this family, our family, for making room. Tears streaked her cheeks. Khalil tugged her hand, and she lifted him so he could place a small sunflower on the casket. The sight of it broke something tender in the crowd. Sniffles filled the air. Even Caleb turned his head to wipe his eyes. Pastor Green nodded solemnly. Amen. Truth spoken is truth planted. And from truth, forgiveness can grow. When the time came, the funeral director and his assistants adjusted the ropes. The casket lowered slowly, the creak of pulleys mixing with a rustle of wind through the trees. Mama's lips moved in silent prayer. Naomi gripped my hand tightly. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, the pastor intoned, casting soil onto the casket. The soft thud echoed finality. Each of us followed, handfuls of dirt, flowers, prayers. Darius tossed his soil quickly, jaw clenched. Caleb lingered, whispering words none of us heard. Naomi knelt a little, letting the dirt sift through her fingers like something precious. When it was my turn, I whispered, "We heard you, Daddy. We'll carry it." Then I let the soil fall. Finally, Mama stepped forward again. She opened the notebook she had begun the night before and tore out a page. "These are the debts we started to settle yesterday," she said. "This is the record of truth. Go with it." She dropped the paper into the grave. The casket disappeared under flowers, soil, and memory. When the last rope was pulled away, the groundkeepers moved in quietly to finish their work. The family gathered in a circle, holding hands. Pastor Green prayed for healing, not easy healing, but the kind that takes root through storms. When we left the cemetery, the sun was lower, the heat gentler. It felt like the earth had swallowed not just a body, but a burden. Back at the house, the atmosphere was different. Still heavy, but not choking. People spoke more freely. Cousins joked softly in the kitchen. Children played on the porch, their laughter stitching holes in the silence. Terence stopped by briefly. He shook Darius's hand, nodded at Caleb, hugged Mama. 30 days, he reminded us, waving the agreement. "But I believe you'll keep your word." "We will," Mama said. When he left, Alana lingered. Khalil sprawled on the rug with Naomi, playing a card game. Mama sat across from Alana at the table. "You don't owe me anything," Alana said. "I didn't come for money or apologies." Mama shook her head. "We owe you acknowledgement. You are part of this family. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be a grandmother to that boy." Alana's lips trembled. "You'd do that? After everything?" "Yes, Mama said firmly. Because forgiveness is heavier when it stays locked up. I'd rather carry love. Alana covered her face for a moment, then let out a shaky laugh. Then maybe this isn't just an ending. It isn't, Mama said. It's a beginning, even if it hurts to start it here. Darius finally spoke, his voice rough. You want to come by next Sunday? We'll cook out back. No funeral clothes. Just ribs and laughter. Alana blinked in surprise, then smiled faintly. I'd like that. As the night stretched, I realized something. Daddy's letter hadn't just confessed wrongs. It had stitched together a broken circle. The wound was still raw, but it was no longer festering in the dark. It was open to the light, and maybe, just maybe, it would heal. 1 week later, the Coleman house smelled not of grief but of barbecue smoke. Darius stood at the grill, turning ribs with the same concentration he once used fixing air conditioners. Caleb carried folding chairs into the yard, muttering about splinters but setting them neatly anyway. Mama sat on the porch with Naomi, shelling peas into a big bowl, her laughter lighter than I'd heard in months. When Alana pulled up with Khalil, the backyard grew quiet. The boy ran straight to the children playing tag, his voice mixing with theirs as if he had always belonged. Alana walked slower, uncertain. Darius waved a rib at her. Grab a plate before I eat it all. She blinked, then smiled shyly. Caleb handed her a chair without a word. Mama patted the seat next to her. Sit, daughter, she said, her voice soft but firm. Tears filled Alana's eyes, but she sat. We ate together, cornbread, ribs, coleslaw, cobbler. The kind of meal that fills more than the stomach. Between bites, Caleb leaned across the table. You ever play spades? Alana laughed. Do I? You about to lose. By evening, the yard rang with shouts, cards slapping the table, children chasing fireflies. Mama leaned back, her eyes on the sky. Richard, she whispered, look what your truth started. 30 days later, Mama walked into a downtown law office with Darius, Caleb, Alana, and me. Terrence was already there, wearing a crisp shirt, his expression steady but wary. The lawyer laid out the papers. This agreement acknowledges repayment of the debt with interest, as outlined in Mr. Coleman's letter. 10,000 already paid. 15,000 balance today. Mama slid the cashier's check across the table. This closes the account between Richard and you. Terrence stared at the check, then at us. I carried that debt like a stone in my pocket for 20 years. I almost let it harden me. But today, I feel lighter. He signed the papers and pushed them back. Thank you. He stood, hesitated, then extended his hand to Caleb. Caleb shook it firmly. Darius followed. Then Terrence turned to Mama. He did wrong. But he did right by leaving that letter in your hands. You honored him better than he honored himself. Mama nodded, tears glistening. We all have to finish the work he left undone. When we left the office, the city felt brighter. The weight of money, secrecy, and silence had shifted. We had paid not just a debt of dollars, but a debt of dignity. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were awkward moments. Caleb sometimes withdrew when Alana visited. Naomi still cried at night. Darius snapped at small things. But slowly, we adjusted. Alana started coming by more often, bringing Khalil. He called Mama Grandma Loretta by the third visit, his voice making her smile so wide it erased years from her face. Naomi helped him with homework, while Caleb taught him how to ride a bike in the alley. One evening, Alana stayed behind after everyone left. She stood in the kitchen, tracing the counter with her finger. Sometimes I feel guilty for being here, she admitted. Like I'm enjoying a family that belonged to me years ago, but too late. I shook my head. You're not late. You're right on time for this chapter. Daddy wrote it that way. She smiled, a little stronger. Then I'll keep reading. That night, Mama sat with her Bible open. She whispered, Lord, thank you for making truth stronger than shame. Months passed. The Coleman house became a gathering place again, not just for blood relatives, but for everyone who carried a piece of Richard's story. Terence visited sometimes, eating ribs and laughing with Darius like they'd been brothers all along. At Thanksgiving, the table stretched longer than ever. Mama sat at the head, Khalil beside her, his plate piled high. Alana carved the turkey while Caleb teased her about slicing it too thin. Naomi led the children in grace. When it was my turn to speak, I raised my glass. To Daddy, I said, my throat tight. Not for the secrets he kept, but for the truth he left. He gave us more work than we asked for, but in doing it, we found each other. Everyone lifted their glasses. Mama's eyes shone. Amen. That night, as I washed dishes with Alana, she said, You know, funerals usually end families. They start fights, they break ties. But yours, ours, made room for me. That's a rare kind of grace. I nodded, smiling through tears. It's a grace paid for with truth, and we'll keep it alive.